chapel and we're gonna get married. Going to the chapel.
Kaya, what advice do you have for Mr. Sidney that would help him to be a great husband?
I think that you should try to like what Mrs. Tanner likes, or just try.
What advice would you give Miss Tanner on being a good wife?
Take care of her child.
What would you tell Miss Tanner advice on being a good wife?
Do the dishes.
I think he should, if he has any children, make them obey the rules that he gives them, and be strong, and don't be afraid.
Advice for Miss Tanner as she's getting ready to get married.
Well, I always thought to myself, just be a cool guy. Just always give him a very cool mood and always give him comfort.
Trevor, what advice do you have for Mr. Sidney?
To clean up around the house, not to lay in bed.
What advice would you give Mr. Sidney on being a good husband?
You could ask her what she would like to eat and then make it for her. Have a baby.
I think some advice I could give her is that, Mr. Sidney's a kind man. And I think you should give him advice about what to do in school. What to do to help the kids learn and have fun at the same time. And I think you should go out sometimes and have a vacation once in a while. I think that the same thing as Maya, but one more thing. You should at least have fun. Go shopping and go together and have some fun.
So what advice do you have for Mr. Sidney and Miss Tanner?
I think Miss Tanner should always stand by Mr. Sidney and hold his hands and give him comfort when he needs it.
Ben, what advice do you have for Mr. Sidney?
Well, he should cook for her, and he should clean the house and be helpful a lot.
Mr. Sidney, keep your shirt on. Just go.
And what advice do you have for Mr. Sidney?
Be nice and make breakfast.
Mrs. Tanner, I think you should be nice to Mr. Sidney because you're the best teacher ever.
What advice do you have for Mr. Sidney?
Mow the lawn.
Say that again?
Mow the lawn.
Anything?
Make sure you made the right decision.
What advice would you give Mr. Sidney to be a good husband?
Mr. Sidney can take Miss Tanner to a romantic place. You could take her to the beach.
I think some advice would be maybe to go to dinner together and have some fun.
Okay.
I think that Miss Tanner should treat him nicely and be kind, just like Mr. Sidney, and go out to dinner a lot, just like that.
Here's some advice to do to Miss Tanner. You can give her lots of presents for her birthday, and also you can be nice to her and let her do what she wants, and Miss Tanner can let you do what you want.
What advice would you give Miss Tanner on being a good wife?
Stay with him.
Go out to dinner with her.
What advice do you have for Miss Tanner and Mr. Sidney?
I think Miss Tanner, when they're getting married, Miss Tanner should wear pretty girly and awesome shoes.
Be nice to your husband. Make Miss Tanner's favorite food. Okay. Put some hands through his string, and that will surprise her and be a good wolfhawk and give her lots of smoochy kisses.
Being a good husband.
Mr. Sidney, be nice to Mrs. Tanner.
Do not get mad at her and take care of her.
What would you give Mr. Sidney on being a good husband?
Take care of the baby.
So Julia, what advice do you have for Miss Tanner?
So Miss Tanner, whenever Mr. Sidney's working at the RBC Center or teaching, Miss Tanner could come in and help him.
Always be polite and use table manners.
What advice would you give Mr. Sidney on being a good husband?
Do gardening for Miss Tanner. Be as pretty as possible.
And what advice do you have for Mr. Sidney? Sophie, what advice do you have for Miss Tanner to help her be a great wife?
Make sure you take a shower every night.
What advice would you give Miss Tanner on being a good wife?
Take him on a picnic. Don't watch football ever again.